Hi, folks. Chris Temple with you here, editor and publisher of the National Investor, and we're counting down the days still to just over a week away as we're doing this to the Strategic Investment Insights Conference in Chicago. It's specifically at the Lincolnshire Marriott Hotel, May 6th and 7th, a week from this imminently coming Friday and Saturday. We hope to see you there. If you haven't registered yet, do so. Go to the website, spend some time and look at the discussions we're going to have. We've got 16, maybe a 17th company coming in at the last minute. We're waiting to hear back from them. So it's going to be a jam-packed schedule. You're going to find out why it's important to be able to meet companies one-on-one, shake the hands of the people that run these things. And my guest, among other things, is going to be talking about that in just a second. Bill Powers is that guest. He is the chief cook and bottle washer at Mining Stock Education and joins me now. And he's going to be joining us at Strategic Investment Insights, and among other things, be on our Friday night panel, which, Bill, I appreciate you being here.
Chris, really appreciate it and look forward to seeing you in person and shaking hands. I haven't been to a conference in about two and a quarter years.
Well, I want to jump ahead, and before we get into what got you started in this, the big picture of mining stock education, let's talk about that, because you and I were talking before we started recording. We've had this conversation before, and I'm a testimony to it. You're a testimony to it. We've both visited projects all over creation, got to meet people, and that's really, really important as we get back at least somewhat to these in-person conferences. It's important for companies, and it's important for the investors and brokers and other people who are going to come.
That's exactly right. Especially when you're talking about investing in junior mining equities, this very niche, complex sector, you can add to your repertoire skills and knowledge, which hopefully a show like mine offers, and it can give you some general ideas of how to do due diligence and critique a potential investment. But in my own experience, the best deals have actually come through personal relationships. And if I track where that personal relationship came from, it came from an in-person conference, and not just someone I met at a booth maybe, but just having a cup of coffee at a conference, debriefing outside of the lecture hall, or it was a relationship that came to me, a deal that came to me from somebody that I met at a conference over the last 5 to 7 years that I've been going to these conferences. So that is one of the key things, not just the knowledge you get from listening to knowledgeable people speak at these conferences, but it's the relationships and the growing of your Rolodex that is crucial to profit, especially in junior mining stocks.
No question. And especially in a sector like that. And of course, we've got companies beyond the resource exploration at our show, but in most of the cases still companies that are relative early stages. There's a lot of hoops still to jump through, a lot of things that need to go right, but it's helpful and instructive to be able to look somebody in the eye and get a personal in-person story from them. I've told a story millions of times about one of my dearest friends in the resource industry, Glenn McKay. I met him way back in the late 90s at one of the old San Francisco gold shows. And Glenn at the time was getting ready to do a corporate transaction. He had this little company, which back then was focused in Eastern Canada, called Cornerstone Capital Resources. And a trivia question for those of you out there listening, if you don't know the answer, you now will. What was the very first stock to be listed officially and have their listing approved when the venture exchange came into being? And that was Cornerstone. So anyway, what impressed me about Glenn, besides his demeanor, he's a very, very good, forthright man, is that he was explaining to me, even though he was at this conference, the reasons why I should not yet recommend his company. And we just want to get people ready. We want to tell the story, but here's what you need to know. And I've always respected that, because too many times you'll go and you hear the opposite. You get somebody blow smoke up your skirt, so to speak. So it is good that you can meet people like that and build relationships like you've done, like I've done. And that's a lot of what you do with mining stock education, and I'd love for you to give people an overview of that. I mean, ultimately, you're trying to give people good information, point them to opportunities. And folks, one of the things I like and appreciate about Bill is that, and you've heard me say this some of you umpteen times, maybe too many times, that we need to get over, we meaning people in the resource space specifically, especially precious metals, we need to get over the hucksterism, I think, that's out there among these Pied Pipers of the gold bug echo chamber and others. and give the other 99% of investors out there who are not automatically gold bugs or resource bugs, give them information they can hang their hat on, not dopey theories, not somebody suppressing the gold price or any of this other stuff, but give them the nuts and bolts of what's going on in our world that is giving us now a secular bull market for commodities specifically that's going to last for years. Some stories more spectacular than others, and then give them ideas of the companies to look at. And Bill, I've been a guest on your show numerous times. You do a great job. You've built up a great following, which you deserve. So take us back a step or two and tell us what prompted you, from your perspective, to start all this.
Sure. A decade ago, I was running a construction company in Metro Detroit, and I was looking where to place the excess cash, my savings. And this is post Lehman Brothers, of course, and started to learn and discover the benefits of why you'd want to hold physical gold and silver in your own possession. So I invested in physical gold and silver from 2012 up through the end of 2015 and beyond. But at the end of 2015, I had my average cost basis for my silver investments were probably $20 to $22 per ounce. But in December of 2015, silver was now going below $14 an ounce. And I said to myself, I just don't think silver is going to stay down here. I think we're due for a pop, and silver is very volatile, very explosive. So when it pops, it can really pop. So I asked myself the question, not having focused on mining stocks before, but where can I find a leveraged play on silver? And that led me into the junior mining stocks. I just started looking at charts, not even understanding the fundamentals at that point. I said, wow, some of these things are down 95, 97% off of their 2011, 2012 highs. So I just bought a bunch of those small miners, even bought a major silver miner, First Majestic, which trades on the big board, not on the OTC markets, not on the pink or the gray markets, but on the big board. And over the next 6 months, First Majestic, which I bought for like $270 a share, went to $19. And mind you, this is on a major exchange in 6 months that is very liquid. You can get in and out of the stock. Some of my smaller silver stocks went 8 to 10-fold. Exploration companies that didn't find anything went 3-fold just because silver went from $14 to $21. So the underlying commodity went up 50%. Some of these stocks went up 700 to 900%. And this is all in 6 months. So I said to myself, if I can make that kind of money, not knowing what I'm doing, what happens if I actually just try to learn and figure out how to do this the right way?
Sure.
Well, at that point, there was not a lot of information. There was some, but not as much as there is now, information on YouTube or in the podcast sphere. And so I just consumed anything I could find online. And finally, by the end of 2016, I said, you know what, I'm going to start my own show. It's going to be my own journey of learning. I'm going to call it Mining Stock Education, because I'm not an expert, but I'm someone that's willing to really learn how to do this, because I saw there was a knowledge arbitrage to take advantage of. And Rick Rule says that the caliber of your competition in this sector is so low that if you can just really devote yourself to learning and studying and waiting for those opportunities, you have an increased probability of being successful.
Yeah.
And when you're successful in this sector, you can make life-changing gains 10, 20-fold in 2 to 3 years. And you don't need to be right all the time, because I've lost 60 to 80% on a lot of stocks. But if you're right 40 to 50% of the time, when you're right, you're so right that it covers, it amortizes all of those losses.
Right.
And that's been my journey, Chris. I've been trying to just educate people on how to approach junior mining stocks, to be realistic about the risks that are associated with, and the realistic idea that most people that give their hand to this lose money.
They do. And it's unfortunate. I've talked to so many over the years, and this is one of the pitfalls of being, and I'll use the word overly religious, as some people are. I mean, they live, eat, and breathe gold and silver, especially. Maybe these days they're broadening their horizons because we've had all the other commodities doing well also. But you never, ever want to make an emotional decision. And I appreciate that about you, that yes, you understand the thesis long-term for gold and silver, as well as other commodities, but you come about it rationally. You're about education, and you can look at companies dispassionately, which people must do. I mean, I can't tell you how many times I've talked to people who, they had every dollar they have is in resource stocks. They write them down in a bear market, they're down 60 or 80% on their portfolio, and they think things are going to turn around. And so to get even with whatever spare cash they buy the most leveraged gold stock ETF, a nugget or something like that, and hope they're going to get it back all in one fell swoop. And just as often, it goes from insult to injury. So it's important that people have that. And, that's what you're going to bring to the panel, because we're going to talk about a lot of what's going on in the world today. Higher inflation is here to stay. Yes, if a couple of lucky things happen, we'll moderate from 8.5% year over year to maybe 6 or even 5 if we're really lucky by later. But there's so many things baked into the cake now. And where commodities specifically are concerned, just chronic supply shortages we're going to have for years because of underinvestment. I don't want you to give a specific company name right now, because you're going to do that at the conference. We're all going to do that to some extent. But a couple of themes, maybe beyond companies more broadly, are there any really sweet spots that you're looking at as we're sitting here on, what is today, April the 28th?
Well, Chris, I'm a natural gas bull right now,
Okay.
and the conflict with Ukraine and Russia kind of really exacerbated that, to where you're seeing, for example, just in Turkey, natural gas prices a year ago, which companies there were being paid $6 per MCF, now upwards of $19 per MCF. So you're going up 150% in 1 year. And that's in a country in which they import 90% of their natural gas. You look at the NATO nations, Bulgaria, I think they're at like $20 per MCF, yeah, and they're in need of natural gas. So you have this war situation on top of supply shortages, on top of poor political planning, in which they're talking about this green transition and how bad fossil fuels and oil and gas is. However, they haven't strategically planned out how they're going to heat all of Europe in the winter. So
No.
I like to look for situations like that where you get, whether it's an intentional, or it's whether it's just a lack of intelligence on the behalf of the political leaders, with a clear supply shortage setup. And then I want to position myself in small junior mining stocks that can be part of the solution to that. And they're gonna profit from the 150% rise in nat gas in a year. Whether the junior miner is successful in all of their stated goals, they will just go up in share price value, typically just because the underlying commodity goes up in price.
That's a good point. I was having a conversation with somebody in that industry just a couple or 3 days ago, and you don't have to go back much more than a year and a half or so. And there were areas in Western Canada, they literally could not give their gas away. They would be penalized if they tried to sell gas. Even in the Northeast US, at the worst. And this is, again, in just the last year and a half or 2 years. There was no price at which a wholesaler would buy your gas. And now we've had this complete turnaround, which has been as astonishing as, lithium in 2018, 2019 was in a toilet. Everybody said there's too much lithium production being planned, to now you've got sky high prices, nickel and everything the same way. And who would have ever thought it would happen with natural gas, and Phil Flynn from the Price Futures Group at the Chicago Board of Trade is going to be on our Saturday panel and talking about that as well. And when we had our conversation the other day, he said the same thing you did. This is something where people don't understand how quickly and chronically we have gone from having too much of this stuff. We even had negative pricing for a while at the beginning of the pandemic for oil. And now all of these things we're going to be in short supply for quite some time to come. So Bill, I'm going to look forward to this. We're going to have a lot of good stuff for the attendees, whether you can join us again in person, which we hope you still do. Sign up while there's still time. If not, sign up for the virtual presentations later. You'll have access to all of the companies that we'll have on hand, and the Friday evening discussion on the macro economy, stock picking, stuff like that, that Bill will be with us on Friday. And then the Saturday panel where we get into energy specifically and the whole green movement and what's real, what's not, what's pitfalls, what's opportunities, and so forth. So Bill, I'm looking forward to it. Before we quit, we're going to put your slide and information on the screen. Tell folks about why they should be tuning into you and about your podcast.
Mining stocks, junior mining stocks in particular, are the best place to find 10 baggers or lose 90% of your money. And on my show, I talk to people smarter than me, like Chris, and I provide you actionable intelligence and basically a paradigm into how to understand how to assess a potential junior mining investment.
Great. And you'll have that information available, and we'll have your experience and knowledge available as well too. I'm looking forward to it. See you in just over a week, Bill.
See you, Chris. Look forward to it.